All right, and hey now, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. Thank you for coming to Monday's film scoring class. This is where we look at a scene. I take out the music, I put in some kind of ambient Foley sound in the background, and you become film composers or film supervisors, like we talked about, the two different professions. If you haven't played along, start playing along. You can just send me a link from Spotify or YouTube. And remember, it's not your favorite song. It's maybe not even a song you like, but a song that works well for the scene, for the dramatic purpose of the scene. When we started doing this, it was more as an experiment to see how music can change how a movie looks and sounds. And now we're kind of refining our skills to think, well, what might be the best choice for the drama in the scene? And that drama could be comedy too. By drama, I just mean the purpose of the scene and the movie. So we're just getting great. I'm so proud of you guys. Mostly proud of me, but no, I'm kidding. I haven't been doing my own homework, but I've been doing so much research for this. So okay, so we're going to continue with. We looked at The Graduate last week, and that was terrific. We're going to continue with the New Hollywood. Yes, they call it the New Hollywood that we've looked at. We've looked at directors. Mike Nichols, we looked at last week. Previously, we've looked at William Friedkin with The French Connection, part of the New Hollywood era of filmmakers, where this is late 60s, 70s. This is way different than, this is way different than movies in the early 60s, 50s prior to that. There were more production codes. There was things that you just couldn't do. You know, with the counterculture in the 60s, it was freedom. You could do whatever. Easy Rider and all these things that we talk about a lot during the class. So this is the New Hollywood. And another person that we're going to be talking about today in his movie, we're going to be talking a little bit about Martin Scorsese. And he was under the tutelage of John Cassavetes. So this is the era of cinema we're talking about. Although the movie we'll be talking and looking at is from 1980. So we're going to look at a very important film called The Raging Bull. You've probably seen some clips from it. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a biographical sports drama film directed by Scorsese in 1980. So, you know, he had Mean Streets, he had Taxi Driver, pretty iconic films. They didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, until later, until people looked back on Scorsese and his contribution to film. He is 77 and he's still doing movies. I feel like his movies get longer and longer too, you know, just lengthwise, but that has no relevance to this class at all. Okay, so we're going to look at it. So it's a boxing movie. Now, Rocky's 4 years before this. So we're going to look at your assignment. We're going to talk a little bit about the scene. So Rocky's only 4 years before this, and one thinks, are we now doing boxing movies? And kind of Rocky was the first, you know, real underdog boxing film that, you know, made so much money. So this is from Jake LaMotta's memoir. So Jake LaMotta was a boxer, a professional boxer, middleweight champion, and then he went into stand-up comedy later on. But he wrote this book. De Niro reads this book on the set of Godfather 2, and he's like, "Hey, I want to get Scorsese. I want to get him to direct this." And Scorsese has no interest in sports, still doesn't, and just didn't want to do a boxing movie. Didn't care about boxing. But he started thinking about how perhaps boxing could be, you know, a metaphor for life, staying in the ring, not giving up, doing, you know, pulling punches, you know, kind of those cliches. But I mean, you know, they're cliches because sometimes they're true. So he convinced him. This was also good for Scorsese to do because he had just almost died from a drug overdose from cocaine, because Scorsese was pretty crazy in the 70s and 80s in the sense of he had a lot of pressure from the studios, a lot of pressure on himself. Not that that's justification, but you know, he got real into drugs, and he's clean now. But this movie and De Niro, these projects, kind of course, redirection is good, purpose is good for people dealing with issues of whether it's mental illness or addiction. So so they decide to do this. Now, one of the things, and they also get an unknown actor at that time who's running a restaurant, Joe Pesci. He was literally just running a restaurant, and they said, this guy's got to be perfect. And of course, De Niro, Scorsese, and Pesci would go on to change movies. Still, just recently with The Irishman. So, okay, so they make this story based on Jake LaMotta's life, and one of the things you're going to notice about it is that it's in black and white. Now, why did Scorsese do it? Some people, maybe Bonnie, but I won't name any names, don't feel that sometimes that there's no need to, what's the point of doing something in black and white? And I get that point. Some filmmakers like it because it looks great. It reminds them of a glamorous part of Hollywood. It's something that's different to use. I go back and forth, but this is 1980, and film, a few reasons. He wanted to distinguish it from looking like Rocky. Okay, so that's a big, even though that was 4 years ago, he didn't want people to think, oh, is that Rocky? Oh, no. He wanted right away to know that this is not anything to do. And the story is nothing like Rocky. This is grittier. This is way more raw. This is definitely an R-rated film. So this is okay. So he wanted to distinguish it from Rocky, and also although we looked at Woody Allen's Manhattan. Now that was a year before, so nobody's ever referenced and made the comparison between the two. But I know that Woody Allen loves Scorsese, and maybe vice versa. I don't know what Scorsese thinks about Woody Allen, but there's no way he couldn't have not been influenced a little bit because Woody Allen was really the first to kind of bring black and white back onto the do they call it the silver screen, onto the big screen, whatever they call it. Was really he reminded people how beautiful black and white could be on a big screen in a movie where, it's like, well, if we're progressing and, doing all these great new things, but whoa, why is this in black and white? So he was really kind of one of the first. So Scorsese probably was a little bit influenced by that. And we looked at the opening scene in our George Gershwin class of Manhattan. So again, we already know about this stuff. We're learning really well. So he wanted the black and white to stand out visually, and it does. And then he didn't have to really worry about blood either. So it's easier to film black and white sometimes for the colors. So all that blood on the ring, that was all Hershey's, chocolate. So that would be fine. And also the time period. It takes place, it goes through several years, but in the 60s. And so it's kind of the era of when things might be shot in black and white. Now, Scorsese also, with looking at these scenes, you're going to see what's different about it are the angles, the camera angles. Many times you see from the audience's point of view what the boxing match looks like. Here is very intimate in the sense of you're in the ring, really. I mean, you are with De Niro. You're almost like the other boxer. That's really intense filming and very cool and very different for back then. So that's not, Rocky kind of was like that, but I mean, this is really in your face boxing where you are actually part of the match. And of course, De Niro does that so well. He won Best Actor for this, and it also won Best Editing too. But so that the camera style on that is amazing. With Michael Chapman placing the camera inside the ring. And De Niro studied with LaMotta, and he would box with him, and became a real boxer. And then also went to Italy to gain, 100 pounds or something, because at the beginning and the end, like I said, he ended up being a stand-up comedian, so he had gained a lot of weight. So of course, instead of wearing a fat suit, De Niro was method-like. So actually did gain all that weight, which must have been kind of fun going to Italy to just, eat whatever you want. So, okay, so the movie kind of wasn't a huge box office success, but that doesn't mean it's not, that doesn't mean it's not considered good. Many times movies fail miserably, and then a year or two after, people are like, hey, you know what, that movie was kind of brilliant. So anyway, the scene we're going to be looking at, we're going to do something different this time, because I want to show you the scene without the music, because usually we look at the scene first. Let's look at it without it, because I want you to think, when the first time you see this, this is the opening credits of the film. We've scored credits before, but as I show you the credits, I want you to think, well, what music? And for those of you that have never seen it, this is good. For those of you who have seen it, maybe you don't remember, and for those of you that know exactly what I'm talking about, just you don't have to speak out. So, but I want to show you it right now. And think about, I wonder what Scorsese chose for that. So let's look at it without the music first. So let's watch it with the music. Pretty surprising, right? Did anyone guess it would have been a classical piece from an opera? I wouldn't have. I was surprised when I first saw this movie, thinking, what? And Scorsese uses classical music, but mostly uses popular music in his movies. If you think of the opening of Mean Streets or something like that with Be My Baby. But this opening is way different. He uses the intermezzo, and that's from an opera. 1890, the opera came out. Cavalleria Rusticana by Mascagni. Very famous piece. Also used in Godfather 3 years later, 15 years later. I know my dad loves this piece. It's beautiful. It serves as the theme to Raging Bull. After he tried it out with the editor, and I think it works great. I mean, because obviously you see, when you know the name Scorsese is going to be a kind of a brutal, raw movie in a sense. It's not a Disney director. You know De Niro is going to be intense and method and great. You know it's about boxing. The last thing you would think of would be, I wonder if opera would work. But you know what? Sometimes thinking outside the box it makes you realize the different possibilities. So if we put the Rocky theme in, that would I mean, you could, but now that I said that, I don't really want anyone to submit that. But if we did put that in, that would change the whole tone of the movie, which is fine. Again, with the opening credits, we have a lot of freedom because we're going to dictate the rest of the movie. With this classical piece, it's going to dictate, maybe this isn't just all violent and harsh, and although it is, but parts of it are very, very vulnerable and sweet and heartbreaking in it. So Scorsese's showing you this isn't just going to be like what you think it's going to be. So get it to me by tomorrow. We're going to see the results on Friday. Very excited for this. Scorsese's Raging Bull. And have I said it all? Let me know if I haven't said it all, but pretty sure I said it all. So love you and miss you. Can't wait to see your work. Tomorrow's going to be amazing. Okay, bye.